and welcome to All Hands on Tech, Pluralsight's podcast about developing technology skills and embracing innovation. I'm Jeremy Morgan. When building a SaaS product, most engineers love talking about things like our infrastructure, the cool cloud services we're using, all the nifty new technology like NoSQL or Elastic Beanstalk. But what about the experience? Having a solid infrastructure is crucial, but the experience is what really matters to people using your product. It's easy to throw some AI and machine learning into your SaaS offering just to say that you have it, but are you using it in the right way? Can you truly leverage AI to make the experience of using your product better? And how do you do it? Today I'll be talking with someone who has done just that. James Aylward is our head of learner here at Pluralsight, and he's led cross-functional teams that are focused on improving the learner experience. He talks about some of the challenges he's faced and how we're constantly striving to fine-tune that experience for our learners. So let's welcome James Aylward. How are you doing today, James?
Great. How are you doing tonight, Jeremy?
I'm doing great.
Awesome.
So you're responsible for learner experience here at Pluralsight. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're working on right now?
Yeah, sure thing. So part of the experience organization, and we're responsible for all the learner-facing experiences. So, how the awesome content comes together and how we meet each learner in their moment of learning with the right modality and the right content at the right time to match their needs, both technically what they're looking for, but also what level they are from, novice or expert and anywhere in between. How do we get you the right content, the right form factor, the right modality at the right moment? So that's the sort of overall matching exercise for the learner experience. And with that, we have our partners who build all that great content, but we also provide a whole bunch of really interesting data to technology leaders about their labor force and how well skilled up they are to meet the needs of their industry as we progress. So all of that means that in the learner team, we have our search engine, our recommendation system. We have the home page, the course page, and the skill IQ and role IQ assessment engines that are able to assess a learner's proficiency and then provide a personalized learning plan of how to attack their strengths and weaknesses in an optimal manner. We also have, a question and answer functionality within the platform where learners can help other learners. And increasingly, we're making our experience entirely responsive. So you can use it through the mobile web, or you can use any of our native apps too in order to learn. Long story short, we're trying to work out how to get the best bit of content to you at the right time, wherever you are in the world.
Nice. That's some pretty amazing stuff. So what was your journey like to getting here at Pluralsight?
Yeah, sure. My traditional background, I've been a product person, all of pretty much my career, from Staples onto Vistaprint. And then we, launched a startup called Gazelle, which was sold. And then I was looking at next options, and Fidelity Investments had a sort of an incubator, an internal R&D incubator sort of technology group called Fidelity Labs. And they were looking at ways to bring artificial intelligence and machine learning techniques, which I've been using a lot, somewhat in my previous roles, of how to bring the right experience to every learner throughout previous roles, and had some experience with. But it was more about how do we upskill an entire organization with these new capabilities that artificial intelligence and machine learning bring to the table through a very established and traditional company at Fidelity Investments. And through a lot of trial and error and getting things right and wrong, pretty soon I realized, hey, it's frankly all about empowering the domain experts with the right training and the right access to the right talent and data in order to bring AI and ML, the promise thereof, to life. And what happened was after a while, it's like almost building my own Pluralsight internally in Fidelity. So when the Pluralsight opportunity arose, I was like, look, this is a really compelling mission. And I feel like it's something that the world needs, is just a better understanding of what AI machine learning can do. And then beyond that, any tech skill, like as soon as you empower someone with a little bit of knowledge about what a great use case for a certain technology is, and then provide enough training for them to start that learning journey, you can really change people's outlooks and outcomes in their lives. So the mission, I've seen it with my own own two eyes over and over again. So I was really drawn to what Pluralsight was doing. I saw the huge need in the market for that, and not just the market. Like I see it as a huge need for the world to be able to unlock this human talent through providing easy access to really high quality learning materials within technology.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the mix of AI and ML and then our other design strategies, it seems like we're kind of going into a data-driven design and a human-driven design. Do you think there's a lot of conflicts between those two things, or do you think that they can be meshed together?
Oh, that's a key learning. Yeah, I see that as there's a huge need for human-centered design, and we need to always keep that, what the user wants is paramount. So having AI and ML, that's just a few more colors in your palette from a product design viewpoint or a human-centered design view. But having those knowledge of what those capabilities can do provides more opportunity to fit that human need. So building AI or ML or blockchain or whatever technology, just for the sake of using that technology, that's not gonna, it's not gonna hit the mark. You're not gonna find the product market fit. But identifying, like any good product development process, identifying that right need and then working out the best way to fit that need in a way that no one else can, that will start to get you the product market fit that you desire. And then if you're able to use AI and ML to do it in a way that no one else can, that builds a further incentive for people to use your product or your experience over others. I see them as highly complementary, but you need to start with a human need. And then if you can layer on the extra unfair advantage of AI ML, you can really make an impact. So that was actually another reason why I came to Pluralsight. It was because we weren't doing AI and ML just because we needed to do AI and ML. We were using artificial intelligence and machine learning to do that matching exercise between an enormous content library and matching the different modalities and different web clips to the myriad of needs and levels of the learners at any one point in their lives. That's a matching exercise that cannot really be done at scale with a rules-based development process. You need to have a probabilistic, engine behind that in order to match best content to best learner for the optimal outcome. And our optimal outcome is reducing that time to skill acquisition. Whatever we can do to get you started, that's what we optimize for, and that's what our algorithm's based around, which to me is so cool to be able to use AI and ML in order to teach AI and ML. There's a real meta thing there, but we're not just doing it AI and ML for fun. We're doing it because it's got a real reason for us to hit a human-centered need.
Do you think there's some changes to the human process, say something like lean, for instance? Do you think there's a change that has to be done to the human process in order to get that feedback quickly and get it into the system quickly so you can make the changes to the AI and ML?
Yeah. So product development for AI ML is a underappreciated art, I think. It's hard enough to sort of find that traditional products intersection of having a product that's desirable, viable, and feasible. But to add in the AI, you need to have a data set that is has the right qualities in order to make a prediction, for example. You also need to have the right infrastructure to be able to have models in production that respond to a learner's needs and also get smarter over time, which we do. And then you need to have the right, computers to be able, like supercomputers, to be able to crunch all that data in real time, build new models. And then, finally, how do you deliver that to the user? So how do we explain to the user why we've come up with a recommendation we have, which is, again, a human-centered challenge. Now, all of that sort of adds 5 or 6 levels of complexity on top of what is already a tough job, which is finding great product market fit for product managers and engineers and designers and all the data scientists and all those sort of people we have focused on that today. So it's an emerging enterprise, the product development for AI ML. And what you're hitting on there is the need for an automated feedback loop between the learner or the user and for other people back to the data set in order for that prediction engine or what have you to improve. So yeah, that's just one element of things to be aware of as you build out AI and ML. There's probably it introduces way more I guess, risk in can you actually do it? So your feasibility risk goes up. But if you get there and if you're able to have a AI or an ML based product that hits a human-centered design that people really, care about, your product just takes off. The other thing is the team that can get there the quickest usually gets that data advantage because their product starts learning quicker than everybody else's. So you start to amass a bit of a moat in terms of your product over somebody else's because you have that data set, you have that data asset that is increasing over time. And the people who are trying to follow you into that market do not. So there is a first mover advantage for anybody who can sort of crack the nut there.
I've kind of wondered about this, just curious, would a smaller unit of work kind of mitigate the danger in that feedback loop? It sounds like we have an experimental process going here. So instead of grand, large, huge experiments with a lot of different features to it, does making that unit smaller to where we'll try smaller experiments at each time, does that kind of mitigate the danger of going down the wrong path or training the model in a way that we wouldn't want to?
With AI ML product development, the normal product development is, yes, you want to have small experiments, small units of work to be able to see whether there's any sort of appetite at all for your value prop in the market. And to a certain extent, that's also true with your, as you build out a data science stream to help with product development. Where it gets a little tricky, though, is that, you need a certain level of data in order to produce most of the AI ML applications that will make sense. So in some regards, you need to have a good amount of data to even test whether something will work or not at scale. So unfortunately, sometimes you sort of have to build it to see whether it works. The other way you can do that is try and fake it. But in order to fake that, like do a Wizard of Oz style test where you are seeing whether a user actually wants that experience or not, you're sort of presuming that the AI or ML will work most of the time. If you are going to sort of rig it up so that you can see whether your prototype works with customers before actually building out a full-scale model, you might want to introduce some deliberate wrongs to it. Because what I've seen product teams do is say, yeah, if we had this AI ML, it would always work great and it'll be fantastic and it'll be perfect for the end user. But what happens is, because it is by its nature a probabilistic solution, it will sometimes be wrong. And that's why, you don't click on a movie recommendation from Netflix every single time. It's sometimes wrong. It's, with Spotify, it's sometimes not a great song. So if you're going to rig up a test to see whether the AI or ML product will be interesting to your end users, you sort of need to introduce this level of wrongness that is a new skill for product development in the AI ML space. Anyway, it's you can do it, and you should be testing regularly at small increments. But there is a need to get not the entire data set, but enough data to really be able to test whether the models will work in parallel as you build out the normal sort of product development process that you're running.
So how is feedback gathered for that process? How do you know if the model's working well, and how do you gather that feedback from the user, from the learner?
We have a process called directed discovery, which we use for product development, which involves a lot of voice of the customer qualitative interviews to begin with. But we also look at prototype testing, and then did we actually hit the mark when we get this into production? Sort of what do we have that large scale customer acceptance? So those three elements, we are always. The first one is identifying that that customer need, that human-centered customer need. When we do that, if we identify there's a human-centered customer need for something, the prototype is then, can we build an AI ML prototype that sort of shows the power of what this could look like when it's real at scale? At that point, we're able to show that to customers and get some real-time feedback as to whether they like the prototype or not. But the rubber really hits the road when we get it into a large scale, because it's not easy. There's a lot of AI ML prototypes out there that never get to production, and that's not just us, that's everyone in the industry. Because you mentioned you're in DevOps before. DevOps for AI and ML and having real models in production, it's a different animal. Like because you're making a prediction generally, or maybe clustering based on real-time data that moves through the system, in flow. It's not like you've written a line of code and it stays the same. You've written a model, but the data might change, or the industry might change, or something might happen to the user base, and your model, drifts out of production or out of alignment with your goals. So our team needs to constantly track how we're performing on a recommendations engine, for example, and seeing we have 5 or 6 or 7 different models any one time in production, and we see how many people are not just clicking through our recommendation engine, we're seeing whether they view the whole video or enough of the video to indicate that they were happy about it. Did they provide ratings? Did they continue on their learning journeys throughout the experience or not? It's not just about the click. So in that element where we've looked at, we've heard the voice of the customer, we've done some prototyping, we feel good about it, we've built it up to a production level environment, and then we have constant real-time tracking on, is this hitting the customer use case? And if it's not, then do we have other approaches or models that can jump in there? In this example, it's the different models that compete over the recommendation engine to see if we have one that better matches the human-centered need. So in this case, it's almost like the AI ML is iterating in real time and getting smarter and doing its own product development to make our product of recommendations better. It's fascinating to me. It's something that is really the next step in product development. But at the end of the day, we're just trying to hit the same need that every product manager has, and that's how do we make sure that our product fits the needs of the learner.
What has it been like building product teams? So you've been building them across geographies with a bunch of different skills that are required and a bunch of demands like you were just talking about. There's all these different demands and considerations. So what has it been like building these product teams?
That's been a lot of fun in itself. So we have our whole mission here is to democratize technology skills. And it's kind of funny that I'm starting to answer your question here using the company mission, but we really, we really back into our systems architecture based on our company mission. So the quickest way we feel like we can get there to democratize technology skills is to have small, cross-functional, empowered teams working at scale to arrive at that mission. And what we identified 3 or 4 years ago, hey, we need to move off a monolithic architecture onto a cloud-based architecture or a polyglot style approach where we have microservices that have full autonomy within what we call a bounded context. So right in front of me right here in Boston is the search team, and they have full autonomy over the search engine. And what that means is the entire tech stack they choose with help and input from our architecture team, but they are fully empowered to choose the tech stack that meets their needs. And then we have the right skill sets within that team. So we have 3 or 4 software engineers that have come up to speed on search techniques throughout the world and become experts on our new search engine. And with that, we also have a product manager and a product designer, different ways to provide search results to our learners. Got architects and DevOps just directly to support that team. They can launch to production and build in production all day long. It's not like there's a steering committee where they have to do 45 PowerPoint presentations in order to get something out the door. They need to move to production quickly. And because the whole team has gone through some of those voice of the customer sessions and also done the prototype testing, they have the context to be able to make the right decision quickly in order to maximize the value for the learner. And by doing that, enabling that, empowering that, we're able to move towards our company mission that much quicker. So we have the right, it all starts from the mission, then comes down to, how do we have an operating system that enables us to have that scale across all these autonomous teams. And that's why we have a lot of focus internally on practices, and we use directed discovery, which is out there. We also have engineering at Pluralsight, which is sort of an operating system for us, and like how we work and how we achieve the outcomes we're looking for. And then the last bit of it is we use the OKR process, like the outcomes and then key results. We want to work out what our objectives are and then work out how we measure progress towards those objectives on a 6-month basis. And that enables the teams to know where they're shooting and work out the best way to produce that outcome. All of which reduces dependencies. It reduces a whole bunch of requirements to sort of run things up and down hierarchies. They're ready to go. They've got the agency and they've got the expectations to create with possibility in whatever way they can in order to achieve the outcome that ladders up to our company mission. It goes all the way from company mission down to, hey, what am I doing at stand up today? It's that refined.
It makes an excellent North Star. I would say the mission.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And it aligns to, it's one of the reasons people really enjoy working here at Pluralsight is that autonomy.
In order to have that autonomy, there has to be an element of trust, of course. And I also work here at Pluralsight. I've been here for a little while now, and I've noticed there's a lot of trust between the teams. How do you build that or encourage that? Do you think that's mostly in the way that we hire people, or is it something that we kind of instill in the culture?
So yeah, I mean, we spend a whole bunch of time on team building, and that's as we build out these experienced teams. Yeah, and the bounded context teams, we deliberately look for alignment of talent and how do we build up that trust? And part of that is to have teams involved in the hiring process and hire people into their teams. Through that, we're also encouraging a lot of diversity of thought, in particular. We've moved away from cultural fit a long time ago. It's more, can people live up to the values that we have internally at Pluralsight? Because we really walk the talk there on the values, on the values we've all agreed to operate by within Pluralsight. I can have the trust that if I go to any office in the world in Pluralsight or any of our remote locations or engineers, I know how to have that conversation. I know what operating system we're working under, and that is really how you drive scale. Like as we're seeing as with the success and continued growth of Pluralsight, there is also a systematic element in here of trust, and that's partly because of our engineering at Pluralsight approach, where we actively encourage a lot of pairing and mobbing. And part of that is because we do not have a traditional quality assurance process in our software development. So if something goes down or something goes bang in the night, it's the team that developed that code that is responsible to get up and fix it. Now, what happens there is, because they have that ownership of the maintenance aspect of their product development as well as the development part, it ensures that there's a really healthy approach to building scalable code that will work in production. And because of that, there's a whole bunch of trust that needs to be developed amongst teams. And if teams, on the rare occasion that things do go wrong, they feel bad because they've lost that trust internally and from the teams. And it's almost like, hey, I have to really work on saying it's okay and building them back up a little bit rather than other potentially other engineering cultures.
It seems like the way you describe it is like a positive feedback loop. Essentially, if you give everybody autonomy and the freedom to do whatever they want, they're going to be a little bit more cognizant, a little more directed in what they do to avoid losing that trust that's built.
I mean, people are here to drive towards that mission of democratizing technology skills, right? So, people don't want to let each other down. And that actually builds a really positive culture because we're out, looking after each other and trying to make sure it all goes smoothly.
What advice would you give for tech leaders that are kind of thinking about that model? Would you say to give everybody the autonomy they need and give them the freedom to do what they think is best and kind of rein it back in and see how that works?
It's not just, hey, you can do whatever you want, teams. As a leader, a senior leader, you need to make sure that everybody in the team understands that North Star, as we mentioned, but also be able to break that down into, if your team is super successful, what does that actually look like? How did we walk towards that or run towards that North Star using the talent and resources available within your team to help other teams out? And that's not at all telling them, hey, go do this and go do that and have a Gantt chart and here's a timeline. It's about saying, hey, we want to democratize technology skills, but let's use the search team again as an example. It's to do that, an outcome from the search team, and this is co-created, would be to reduce the exit rate on the search page, because that indicates that people didn't find what they're looking for. Now, how they do that and how that all works out and, like how, what works best with customers is fully up to that team. Like, they have all the autonomy in the world to go and find solutions that help us meet that key result. But you have to provide some sort of cohesion and vision of where we're all headed to from the overall objective and key result. And that is the connective tissue of what the leadership level does. But it's not about like gatekeeping and, being the smartest person in the room and telling people what they should do on a timeline. And, like that just doesn't work at all at scale. If you're looking for, agile product development. And when I say agile, I don't mean like the methodology. I mean like truly agile, like responding quickly to what customers need.
So you've been here a little while, and speaking of scale, we've scaled up quite a bit. What are some things that you've learned along the way since you started here? Big takeaways.
The trust is huge. I'm glad you brought that up. But how do you develop trust? How do you build a culture? And in my world, it was because I'm also in charge of the Boston office here for the Experience org. Is like this office was 25 people when I started, and now we're up to just over 80. And the idea is like, we had an awesome culture and experience when I joined. I was really lucky to inherit that. So how do we grow that quickly without losing the coolness or the cohesion that we developed in those 25 people who were here originally in Boston? And that's all about really being declarative about what our values are. We take onboarding very seriously across the company, all the way from the company-wide level down to each and every team has their own onboarding approach. But the idea here is that everybody's onboarded at every level. And part of that onboarding means, what is the company mission? What is, the learner organization mission? Like, what are we driving to? Does every team have as its objective that they're trying to achieve for that 6 months? Breaking that all down for every member. Also talking about how we do things. That's directed discovery in the product development world, and it's also engineering at Pluralsight, and being really declarative within those two methodologies of what we do. So that helps you scale. It's kind of like working on those practices and operating procedures of how we do things that lets me confidently build out, team after team after team in order to democratize technology skills. If you're going to spend a whole bunch of time on architecting the solution and breaking that down, telling people to build into that, that's way less valuable than spending time on the operating system and the value and the cultures and building up, a culture, where you can hire smart people and ask them to work it out.
In your journey so far, you've had a pretty long career. What are a few things that you wish you knew when you started out that you know now?
I've learned a lot along the way when I was a product person leading different, product launches and things at various companies, I probably took way too much of the credit myself. Like that product launch or that, like we launched that product and we made millions. Yes, we did. It was great. We made a whole bunch of money and everybody came together and we changed the way people, at Vistaprint bought business cards or something. But, I think the actual product team, yeah, we did a lot of cool stuff. But it's the system around that product team that enabled that product team to do what it did, which means you had to have cutting edge engineering. You had to have a great architecture team. You have to have security, both physical and also systematic and cybersecurity across the whole system. How does your HR system work? How does your incentives align to make the outcome that you want to have? How did you hire? How did you onboard? The whole system around a product team is almost more important than the actual product team. Well, I see, good point. I see a really good debate there. I could argue with myself for a long time. But you cannot, success doesn't happen without both of them, right? So you need to have a great product team, but you need to have a great company in order to have a great product team, and at least definitely to scale it anyway, that's for sure. So as I've sort of matured is oh my God, I'm so thankful for the other functions across the company that do their best every day to ensure that, that my teams can flourish as well.
What advice would you give for somebody who's wanting to get into product development?
I tell you what the sort of dysfunctions that I see sometimes to avoid. And the first and foremost is it scares me a lot when I see a person or team building something so that it's perfect, or doing endless research, or making their user journey maps look beautiful before they've actually shown the product or the prototype to a customer, or if they've never talked to a customer in the first place, that's a real problem. Yeah, the advice is you start talking to customers, your target customer, identify who that might be. I guess the lean business canvas if you want to start there. But you have to be okay with showing stuff early, often, and being okay with being totally wrong all the time. The more times you can be wrong, the quicker you get to something that's great in that early product development. That's very true particularly when there's no product market fit. So you try to work out what life cycle you're in. If you're working as a product person on a more established product that's at scale, same holds true. Like, how do you get to production quickly with your prototype? How do you test things live in front of the real end users as quickly as you can and get those learnings? Because that learn, build, measure loop, if you can make that happen quickly and fast, you will get to a position in the marketplace that provides the sort of impact you're looking to have, be that monetary or from whatever other outcomes you're looking for. Get started would be my bit of advice. And also, don't be afraid of it failing too much, because if you can get started failing quickly, it's not that big a deal. It becomes a real big deal if you've spent weeks, months, years building something and have no idea whether it's going to work and then launch it, because then you've got a lot of pressure on you and probably out of money at that point from a runway viewpoint. So yeah, it's not always the easiest job, but being okay with looking into the future, trying something out, being wrong, and then working out why you're wrong. And this is the other thing, people sort of see product launches as potentially as black or white, but they're never black or white. There's always somebody who liked an element of something, and then you look at that group and you say, okay, like those people like this thing. Is that really the real product here? Should we double down on that? Are there more people like that person who liked that feature on whatever you've launched? And then work out whether you can build into that. You might have unlocked a new use case within, your first assumption was totally wrong, but, what are the learnings? Where are the metrics? How can you find the learnings out of whatever you've launched in order to sort of start that walk towards something that somebody really, really cares about?
Any cool projects you're working on right now, or anything that you could tell us about?
Yeah, that's part of my job, is working out what all the teams are working on, because they innovate quicker than I can even catch up to sometimes. I mean, we just saw something in development. We've got a lot of things in development right now. We're thinking increasingly of how do we get closer to the technologist's workflow entirely. But right now, I mean, one that we launched hinted towards at Pluralsight Live in August is Project Voyager, which people can check out, is looking at different ways to represent the potential learning maps that people see in the learning journeys, so that instead of it being, hey, video course, and then like as a separate experience going over and taking a skill IQ or using a path, it's sort of putting it all into one personalized learning journey. So right now we have 3 different experiences out there, one for GCP, one for Azure, and one for AWS. So it's all cloud-based right now. But the idea is you can take a learning component, and that might be a video course, it might be written content, in the future it might be an interactive course from our interactive hands-on learning, project sort of thing. And then you do a learning check. We see, did you really understand the last bit of content? And then we're able to, in real time, work out whether, to optimize your time, it's better for you to go back and take something a bit more foundational, or to, just skip an entire unit because you're obviously clearly up to speed on it, and be able to throttle your learning experience to your level and your outcomes and what you're looking for. So that's Project Voyager. It's really small right now, but we think it's going to grow into something pretty impactful very soon.
Thank you very much for talking with me today.
Yeah, no worries. It's been a lot of fun.
Anything I didn't ask, or anything that you'd like to talk about?
Well, there's all, I could talk for hours and hours and hours. But it's like, when you get it right, you just have a lot of fun getting up and going to work every day. Like people ask what keeps you up at night. Last night I was up thinking about how we connect all these different pieces and the different experiences that we're building. So, we talked about the polyglot architecture. It's like, I get nervous that we're not putting it together quick enough. Like, how do we get going and going faster? And that to me, when I'm nervous about that, means I'm in a really cool flow state. And we're building the future as quick as we can. So, it's not all, every day's up and down, but like right now, I feel like we're having a lot of ups. It's perfect.
Having a solid mission behind everything is crucial for any company. When you're not just trying to move more widgets, it makes a big difference when there's meaning and there's an actual solid mission there that means something to helping people's lives.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally.
Thank you for listening to All Hands on Tech. If you like it, please rate us. You can see episode transcripts and more info at pluralsight.com/podcast.